talk about that. How did you think it went in general?
I feel like it went pretty good. The kids really seemed to understand the difference between the plane shapes and the 3D shapes more than I thought. But I still think they were a little confused on like edges, vertices. I think there was a lot of vocabulary to throw at them.
Did they have that before? Have they ever looked at solid shapes before?
We had looked at them, but it was never really like a full lesson on those vocabulary words. So it was new to them.
Okay. All right, so we were looking at your questioning because you've been working on improving problem solving with them and higher level thinking and stuff like that. So in general, before you even saw the transcript of the questions, how did you think your questioning was?
I think I was thinking about asking questions so much that I asked a lot of questions. But I still feel like I didn't provide that many opportunities for higher level questions. Like I asked kind of a lot of recall questions, like, oh, well, what did he say? What did she say? Why do you think this? I think it was good when I did connect it to like real life. Like where do you see cylinders in your everyday life? I think that was important. But other than that, I feel like I could have done a little more to help, the higher level kids. But I don't know. I guess I don't really know how in depth to go with shapes.
Yeah.
So that's where I struggle.
All right, so I sent you the transcript of the questions, and it looks like you started to go through and code them. So you have already the raw data.
Yeah.
And you saw this, how I mean, you're familiar with the depth
Yeah.
of knowledge anyway, but I was just trying to make sure I was familiar and how it like translates to Bloom's.
Oh,
So I learned that the extended thinking, the highest one, is Bloom's top 2 levels. And then I think strategic thinking is analysis,
yeah.
skill concept is applying, and then recall and reproduction is the bottom 2, remembering and understanding. At least from a couple different pieces of research, that's what I found. So,
Right.
So I just used these as the codes, and I coded even stuff that was not necessarily, like if it really wasn't relevant, I'd put like N. But if it was even like you asking them if they could do something, like a behavioral direction, but you asked it as a question, I even coded the level of that, because you had a couple of those that were actually like higher, a little bit higher, so that was kind of cool. Okay, so this is my code, so if you want to, I know you didn't get through the whole thing, so we'll just look at the first page and see if we kind of agree.
Okay.
Okay, so for the first question, good, you had recall, reproduction, what was my direction, what do you do if you're done? I think that's great that you're like asking questions to get them to do what they're supposed to do.
Right.
That's
Well, I feel
awesome.
like then I know that they're paying attention and know what the next thing is.
Right. Do you want to choose a different carpet square? That was, not really, that was to a specific student, that was kind of not relevant.
I left it because I was like, oh.
But I mean, it's still good that you're asking, giving them a choice, rather than move, directing them, whatever.
Right.
Can anyone describe? So describe definitely is like recall. Is that what you had?
No, I put the concept
Okay.
only because I guess I was thinking like I wanted them to look at a solid shape and I don't know, describe it to me. And for some reason I thought that was content, but I guess I could see how it's recall too.
Yeah.
Because I think at this point I don't know if I like really. I don't know.
Well, and that also comes from the fact that you've been doing that with them before. I didn't really know how much
That's true.
they knew about them. But you're expecting a little bit more because
Right.
they've been doing it. I thought this was kind of like their first intro to that.
Okay, so maybe it could be a little both.
Yeah, definitely. Does anyone want to add to Molly?
Recall.
Recall. I thought that was great. That's a talking, so I thought that was great. But definitely just asking people to add on. Can anyone help Trayvon?
Yeah.
Recall?
Yep.
What are examples of flat surfaces? Is this desk flat?
I put strategic thinking.
I think it could go either way. So examples is kind of concept, I think, because I thought it said something about, showing examples or something like that. Categorizing would be like giving examples of things that are flat surfaces. Is this desk flat? That's kind of like asking if they understand what a flat surface is. But it also could kind of be strategic.
I guess because I was thinking like, on this shape, like what's, I don't know, they had to find the flat surface and then they kind of connected it to like, now like your desk, is it a flat surface? And then they had to kind of, you know, reason, well, if this is a flat surface on a cube, then.
That's a good point.
I don't know, I guess that's just.
No, that's actually a really great point, like connecting it to the real world context.
Right.
So that is kind of strategic, definitely.
But I guess it could be both too.
I didn't know this kid's name, but do you agree with?
Sania.
Sania, okay. Is that how you spell it?
No.
No,
But I got the point.
Okay.
You got a lot of them.
I don't know a lot of their names like I used to. Okay, so do you agree, again, awesome, another talk move. I should have gone through and just like checked off how many times you used talk moves, because I thought you used them a lot, which was awesome.
Yeah, that I did use a lot.
What did you say for that?
Recall.
Recall, then.
Yeah.
All right, can anyone define what an edge is? Concept?
Yeah,
that one, I was kind of, anytime you ask them to define or give a definition, I only was saying recall because it says define right here.
Right.
But, I mean, it is a little bit higher level to be asking them to give their own definition.
Right.
You know?
It's like put in their own words.
So it kind of depends. Are you have you given them an official definition before and you're asking them to just spit it back? That would be recall. Or are you asking them to really put the definition in their own words, which they seem to do from their responses?
Yeah, I mean, they've been introduced to what an edge is. I don't think I necessarily like, they wrote it out, a definition, and like memorized it. So I think it was more like, all right, think about what we talked, like when we pointed out what edges are and shapes. Can anyone define what an edge is?
Right.
So I think it kind of was more so like, think about what we've talked about with edges, what we've pointed out with edges, and then put it in your own words. Like define it. If you were to tell someone else what an edge was, what would you say?
Yeah, so that could definitely be concept. Same thing for vertice. You know, again, if you're just asking them to spit back an official definition you already give them, that would be recall, but if you're asking them to put in their own words, which Molly did, you know, one of the few responses I was actually able to capture, it could be concept. And I think, like, some of these could be higher. I just didn't know as much about their background knowledge as maybe I should have known going into it before I coded it. Does anyone want to help her? Again, I put as a recall.
Yeah.
The other one, anyone, I didn't count that, but who can read me our objective for the day?
As a recall.
Okay. What do you think that means? What are we going to learn about? I thought that was concept, but now I'm even thinking that could be strategic.
Really?
Because if they've never seen that objective before, right? It was a new objective.
Sure. Again, they have to put it in their own words.
And they're like interpreting it, you know?
So maybe it is strategic.
Yeah. And I thought that, I mean, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but I thought that was excellent how you like referenced the objective and spent time actually introducing it. And I know that's something like you guys have been working on in the lower school, and it was like awesome to see it in action. Okay, what's a flat surface? If I show you the shape, what's the flat surface? So definitely the second question there. What did you say, concept? Yeah, definitely. Okay. And can anyone think of another 3D shape?
I put extended thinking only because I thought, I was thinking of it like, all right, they have to know other shapes in order to be able to answer this question, because you know some kids might not know what a rhombus is, or not a rhombus, like a triangular prism, or so in order to know that, I felt like they had to have a little more background knowledge on shapes. Right. But maybe it's not as that extreme.
I mean, it could be. It's like, you know, it's hard, and especially like me not knowing depth of knowledge as much. You've been working with it a lot this year. I don't, you know, my codes may not be perfect. In extended thinking, it does say connect, and it does say apply concepts. but also like thinking of examples is concept.
Right.
And again, it could be higher level for somebody that doesn't know as many shapes, but not for, you know, maybe
Right.
like a Molly who knows a lot of them or something like that, so. Okay, so we don't have to go through every one, but maybe, I just want to point out some of the ones that I put as strategic and extended.
Okay.
So I thought an excellent one was, what's the difference between a square and a cube?
Mm-hmm.
And I put that as strategic, and that might even be extended. Oh, you got to that one? You had concept?
Yeah.
I think that's, to me, higher level because they're really thinking about what's the difference between 2D versus 3D, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And you hadn't really gotten into that before.
Right.
You've done solids, but not.
And we haven't compared or
Right.
thought about the difference.
And that's definitely a higher level skill that requires spatial reasoning.
Sure.
My high schoolers struggle with that, so yeah. Okay, and then I thought this was great. Let's say I put this on the board and traced it, what plane shape would be there? That was, I thought, a great way to have them visualize, but not doing it for them.
Right.
You know, so I thought that was like a great hypothetical. I put that as strategic.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, cool. And then some of them I think that I labeled concept could be higher now that we're kind of talking about it. So like, where do you find cylinders? Is a can of soup a cylinder? That's definitely asking them to connect it to things
Right.
outside of what you're doing in class.
Yeah,
You know?
that's the one that I thought, where do you find cylinders? I put it as extended only because I kind of thought of it as like connecting it to real life and,
Yeah.
you know, like think about like your house, think about food you eat or things that come in cylinders. That's the only reason why I thought it could be like a little higher than scale.
Yeah. Can you think of another 3D shape that has a plane shape or a flat surface that is a circle? That's definitely strategic, if not extended. I put strategic, but looking at it now, it could maybe be extended as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because they really have to think about, they have to think about what solids they know, and then which one has a circle face on it, which is not,
Sure.
you know, not the easiest to think of. And in my experience, they see cone and pyramid very similar.
Yeah.
You know. And then when you're working individually, I thought you had a lot of good recall and concept, like a lot of good recall to reinforce with them,
Mm-hmm.
what you had done in the whole group. And then some of the concept, like asking, what's this solid shape called? When you trace this, what plane shape are you going to see? So again, just like repeating that same concept over and over, but asking them to actually think about it. And then another strategic that I had was when you got the class's full attention, you said, are there any shapes, are there any solid figures that have more than one plane shape when you trace? That's definitely strategic, because that's definitely tricky to think about.
Right.
You know, they have to really think about like triangular prisms, pyramids,
Mm-hmm.
you know, not even the obvious solids.
Right.
So I thought that was great. And that could even be extended, I think.
Mm-hmm.
When I originally did this, the only ones that I did call extended, even though now I'm thinking more of them could be, are at the end, why do you, when you ask the whole, like during your closure, why do you even think we need to learn about shapes? Can you think of any jobs that maybe you need to know different shapes? That's super extended. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you're thinking about how does this connect to your real life? And they actually gave great answers, you know, saying that if they needed to build things, I said in a car shop,
Yes.
work in a car
I
shop.
was like, yeah, no, like to look at the different parts. I'm like, oh yeah.
So originally, those are the only ones I put as extended. Looking at it now, I definitely think there's more in the strategic and extended category. So, but, you know, I don't have that, can't change that data right now. So we'll just look at it, but know that I think that some of these you know, could definitely be higher. So then this is the coded data, but I organized it by level. So you could kind of see the similarities between like your highest, your lower level questions, your recall questions, and then your concept, and then strategic and extended. And like we said, some of these might be bumped up a little bit.
Right.
And I think like another part of this is that it was an intro lesson, you know, to a new objective. So it can tend to be a little harder to get the higher level stuff in there. I thought it was great that you got it in. Yeah, so those are the questions by level, and then this is just like the frequency. So total, and I think I might have made a mistake on this looking back now, because I might have counted the ends in there, and really I shouldn't have. I don't remember if I did or not, but I had 51 questions, and then out of those 25 were recall. Like we said, a couple of them would probably be bumped up. 18 were skill concept, 6 strategic thinking, 2 extended. But like we said, this might shift a little bit. But I think it's great that you even had these levels in there in an introduction to a lesson, you know. I think it would have been easier to have even more variety if you had more time to do the group work.
Right.
Because then you can kind of like differentiate a little bit with kids that need more recall versus kids that are ready to start thinking outside of the box.
Yeah.
And I know you started to do that, you just, you know, don't have a lot of time, so. And I think it's great that your closure, sometimes, I know for me, like my closure will tend to be just pure recall. Like, what did we learn today, you know, name it to me, and then let's move on. But I thought it was great that you included like extended in your closure. Your discussion of the objective at the end was excellent. I forget what I quoted those ones, but I thought they were great, your objective ones.
Right here. So how many learn today? Who's going to learn what the objective is? Concept.
So definitely concept, because you're asking them to really connect, and actually you're really asking them to synthesize, so it could be a little bit higher, you know. And then this is just another way to look at it. This is the pie chart. That doesn't really look like a pie chart since I couldn't print it in color, but you know, it just shows you the percent breakdown. So again, I think this could be even more towards skill concept and some of the strategic thinking and some of the extended thinking.
Right.
So.
Good to see this.
But I thought it was great, how many questions you asked. You know, I really thought I was going to be able to fill out like more of the chart. I think part of that was because it was an introduction, so you're doing a lot of whole class stuff, understandably. And then also because you just did so much great questioning that there wasn't even time to look at the other stuff, because I was just trying to get all the questions in.
Right.
So I thought that was awesome. What else did I want to point out to you? I thought your talk moves were awesome.
I have to do anything to keep them like focused for. Don't you think this class is more difficult than the last second grade class?
Maybe, but I thought they were like super engaged. I mean, obviously you have a couple that are really challenging,
right?
You know,
right. That kind of throw off everyone else at times.
Yeah.
But shapes, I feel like, is a fun one for them.
That's true.
They like shape, especially because like with they can actually touch them and play with them. But other easy to engage them in. But yeah, I mean, that went pretty well.
Yeah, I thought like comparing, not that last year was not good or anything like that, but I was just like blown away by how much you've improved and grown in the past year. It's awesome. I thought the only thing that maybe could have been improved was the small group, and I think probably part of it was time. And I don't know if it was just the group that I was near. A couple of them were like confused on what they were supposed to do. but I thought that you seem to have everybody, it's at least somebody in every group that was kind of like showing them, taking the lead, you know, so you obviously planned your groups well. Yeah, so overall I thought it was great. I thought that I saw so much improvement and growth from you as a teacher, and then you definitely have like a system that works in here, you know, and the fact that you're using questions not only for, you know, higher level thinking, but also to manage behavior. It's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
So what do you, I mean, was this helpful?
Yeah,
do you
no.
think you can use this information?
Definitely, I do think it was helpful, and I guess I was surprised that I even did have some extended, you know, thinking questions in there, because I feel like when I'm in the moment, I feel like when I look back, I'm like, I didn't even ask anything when I was higher level, so it is nice to go back. Clearly I'm okay with the recall questions. I feel like that's all I do, but you know, it just kind of makes me more aware to maybe think ahead of time of ways to incorporate the strategic and extended questions in my lessons, because I guess I never really think about it going into lessons. I'm not like, all right, let me think of the depth of knowledge chart, but this definitely makes me more aware of it.
Cool.
When planning.
How do you think, like, what do you think is responsible for, I'm doing a little extended thinking question right now, for your, like, improvement? I mean, I know you've done a lot of things to try to improve, but, like, you know, specifically just, like, the way you handled everything, managed everything, asked all the questions.
I don't know. I think part of it is just, like, being in the same position for now the second year. So now things that, like, I knew, you know, did not work last year, I knew going into it, okay, well, I remember this didn't work, or let me try this, or I'm going to do this, or even like with the challenging students, I think it was a rough year last year with some of my kids, so it kind of like got me ready for like anything, I guess you could say. So I don't know, I think it's just, you know, kind of feeling like the consistency of being in the same position for more than 1 year. You know, because that was obviously my first real job, and then this kind of just, it was nice to kind of, you know, relive it, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, and obviously all the other things that I do kind of helps, but.
So it seems like as you get more familiar with not only the kids, but the content,
Right.
it gets easier to do that.
Because I mean, I never focused on just math and science. You know, like I never had the opportunity to just kind of really go in depth with one subject area. Because it's always been kind of, even when I was a long-term subber, it's always been touching on reading, writing, math, science.
Right.
So I feel like you've never really had the opportunity to become like a professional in one area or whatever.
Yeah.
So it is nice to become really comfortable with the content, because you feel more confident in your teaching. Like, oh, I know how to teach this.
Right.
You know, rather than reteaching yourself before.
Right. It makes all the recall. It seems like it makes all the recall and the concept stuff like so easy that you can actually make room for the other stuff.
Yeah.
How do you think this will help your team stuff that you're doing at all, or does it?
No, it does. Like, I feel like, you know, with the assessment piece, I mean, I feel like oral assessment is just as important as verbal assessment. And, you know, with the extended thinking questions, when I do incorporate that, it kind of does show me like, oh wow, like maybe I didn't think of that student knowing as much as they actually do about shapes, or, you know, like maybe this student can't even do a simple recall question. So clearly, you know, they need more one-on-one or reteaching or whatever. So I think, you know, with the oral piece of it, it helps to see, you know, how much I just informally assess. Because, yeah, like that stuff's not necessarily like on paper, you don't have data of it, but this kind of at least shows me that I am kind of doing like the quick checks with them verbally.
Right.
You know, and again, I don't write it down, I'm not sitting there like, you know, but even in the future I feel like I can, you know, even just take like a clipboard and maybe have like a checklist, and just quickly, like when I ask questions, I can like check off who can respond to those certain questions, you know, something like that. That isn't, you know, let's sit down and take a quiz and that's my only feedback.
Right.
So it is, I think it's good to see, that piece of it for assessment.
That's awesome. So it's like you're assessing through your questioning, you're also teaching them the problem solving stuff because you're getting them in the habit of hearing these higher level questions, which is what they have to, you know, wrestle with when they're doing problem solving. So that's great. And you're differentiating by getting the different levels in there, which you clearly did. So I think that's awesome. So thank you very much for letting me do it, because I loved seeing you teach. It made me really think about like what levels of questions am I really using in class, you know?
Right.
And I definitely like will reserve the higher level only for certain students, and I won't ask as much higher level in the whole group.
Right.
But then I'm not giving the kids any exposure to it.
Right.
So even if they can't answer it, at least they're like hearing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's actually what Mr. Baginski was saying. He's like, if you ask it and no one answers, he's like, at least you kind of brought it to their attention. And he's like, it's kind of like a swing and a miss. He's like, move on. And I was like, yeah, that's true. So.
Cool. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. This is great.
And this is all for you.
Good.
Whether you use it or not, it's fine. But
No, I'll keep it.
thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.